Hi there! Are you having fun? Well, I would like you to stop it because I'm here to give you the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Moonrakers, the big box, the titan, the everything that is currently on Kickstarter right now. And which has raised over $1 million in the last 24 hours. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of support. And this is a series that I do whenever a board game campaign has raised over $1 million. Old wet blanket Chris George here from Ruined Board has to come and spoil the fun. And I do this, 1, because I hate fun, probably has something to do with my upbringing. And also 2, because there's usually a sense of FOMO, or fear of missing out, associated with these large campaigns. So the goal of this series is not to pick on a game and take away all their funding. That's why the bar is over that $1 million level, so it can't be said that I'm picking on the little guy. The goal here is to make sure that you are as excited when the game arrives at your door as you are right now as you're clicking back on the campaign. Because I get it, there is a lot to be excited about. I'm personally very excited that this is Ivy Studios' first time over that $1 million bar, and I think it speaks to the quality of their games, and I can only speak having played one of their games, Veiled Fate, but that quality is fantastic. And so personally, I need to make this video to talk future Chris out of spending money that he can't afford on getting everything Moonrakers when maybe he doesn't have to. That being said, there is a lot to be excited about. Moonrakers is a game that really appeals to me. The premise of the game is fairly simple if you haven't heard of it. Not sure why you're here, but welcome. If you haven't heard of it, you have to get to 10 prestige points, and you're going to be doing that by completing various missions. But the catch is, you can invite pretty much anybody you want to go along with you on those missions, as long as you agree how to split the spoils. And you can split the victory points, you can split the money, which allows you to buy new cards, you can split the weight of the hazard die, which can actually take away points. There's always a chance that the mission can go very wrong and the moon will not be raked. It won't even be gently grazed, it'll be blown all over the place, and nobody wants that. But the whole concept of Moonrakers is deck building meets negotiation, and I really like both those things. That's drawing me in very significantly. I absolutely love games with negotiation because I love to talk. Catan got me into the hobby, and I love games that provide you the opportunity for that. And what's really exciting to me about Moonrakers is that free-form negotiation that I was just talking about, that you can negotiate for almost anything. Unfortunately, you can't negotiate for things you already own, but anything that you receive from the mission can be divvied out in interesting and exciting ways that perhaps I haven't even thought of yet. And that is really, really cool. And actually, I run on this channel every month. We do a deathmatch tournament with a different theme, and this month's theme, currently ongoing in our Discord, is Hidden Gems. And Moonraker was put forward as a hidden gem. I mean, I guess I can't call it a hidden gem anymore, but it still slipped in there. But it's still in the tournament that my patrons are voting on. And we've been talking about Moonrakers, and the experiences from people who have played Moonrakers have been working their way into the chat. We've been discussing it, and being able to talk about a fun game with a community of people who are passionate about it has been very exciting, and also makes my job a lot harder. So stop having fun. I keep telling you this. But perhaps the most exciting thing that's drawing me into this campaign has nothing to do with the campaign. It's the additional content that Ivy Studios has decided to release. They have this Luminor expansion, which they have put forward as this sort of co-op campaign mission style of game that you can play with your copy of Moonrakers, and with your existing copy as well. And while, yes, it's being released now as sort of a, hey, look what we're doing for you, now support us over here, type of bargaining chip, I still really appreciate it when companies go the extra mile and continue to provide support for their games and provide alternate ways to enjoy the games. They're not making money off this thing, they're doing it for their existing base, and hopefully to keep them satisfied and to keep them coming back as customers and supporting the company. And I think that's a great move. I love when companies kind of push it forward, and I feel like Ivy Studios has done a really great job of creating this thing that people seem to be excited for. I mean, I haven't played it, but I know the people who have played Moonrakers and who have looked into that more are quite excited that this thing exists and we're saying, oh yeah, I can't wait to bust out my copy and try this new Luminor expansion. And I just think that's really cool. On top of that, and I talk a lot about shipping on this channel, shipping is fairly reasonable. To the US, it's pretty reasonable. 15 bucks flat shipping. No matter what pledge you're getting, that's what it's going to cost you. To Canada, it's 28 bucks flat rate shipping. And I appreciate the flat rate shipping. I think a lot of people appreciate the flat rate shipping. And I appreciate it even more that it doesn't change if you get a group pledge and add in 3 extra copies. Which, if I do end up pulling the trigger on this game, which I want to, but I always want to when I make one of these videos, that really helps alleviate the financial burden. So there are things to be excited about. I recognize the excitement. I recognize that I could very easily work myself up into a lather, more of a lather than I have right now, just thinking about the possibilities of this delicious deck building negotiation game, but that is not what this video is about. Here's your chance to turn back now. Do not cross the bridge, because only pain and misery awaits you on the other side. As we get into the 5 official reasons why you shouldn't back Moonrakers. Because just like there are reasons to purchase it, there also might be reasons not to. And so these 5 reasons are going to be varied. They may not dissuade you from backing everything, but my goal here is, especially for those of you who like to jump into an all-in pledge because you feel like you need it, well then these reasons are for you. So reason number 5, you shouldn't back everything Moonrakers in this one go, is simply because you will like one expansion more than the others. I think the tendency with Kickstarters and with board game purchases online is to say, yes, I need everything. I am afraid that if I do not get this one thing, that will ruin my experience, and my game will be subpar without it, and I'll have to throw it in the trash, and I'll have wasted money, so I need to spend that extra little bit to make sure I get all the goodies that I need. And I understand that mentality, but I think that mentality is wrong. I think if you love Moonrakers, you're likely going to purchase something of this game, and maybe if you really like it a lot, and you're backer number 7, well then, you might get everything. And sure, for those of you who really like Moonrakers a lot, all of the expansions might seem like a good idea, but I bet that there will be one expansion that you do like playing with more than others. As is often the case with anything that gives module expansions in one box and not just 3 expansions in different boxes, I personally find that I gravitate towards certain modules more than others, right? There are games which have modular expansions where I don't touch half of them because I like the experience with the base game and I like the experience enriched by the other components. And so have you fully investigated what each of these expansions will bring to you and your Moonrakers experience? If you want more of that negotiation aspect, well then Binding Ties seems to be the way to go. It adds this negotiation board where you can exchange favors for going on missions with tangible goods that you can use in your quests or whatever. This feels like a commercial for Moonrakers, but I'm just trying to give you a breakdown of what everything is. Again, I don't care if you buy it or not. I do care you shouldn't. That has to be the firm stance of this channel to separate me from the riffraff out there. But yeah, Binding Ties seems to enrich that negotiation element. It makes negotiating and going on the different quests more important. And if that's something that you feel like Moonrakers needed, well then, yeah, sure, get that thing. Or there's the Overload expansion, which adds in a bunch of new advanced basic cards, which you can purchase, and they do the same thing that your starting deck cards do, but better. Although, from everything I've read in their rulebook, it doesn't really look like they replace them in your deck. I think, for me, in deck building, I like getting rid of the riffraff at the beginning and adding in better cards feels good, but if there's no way to get rid of that riffraff or replace it even when you purchase it, I don't know how much that would interest me personally in practice. But again, I haven't played this expansion, or Moonrakers, to be fair. Although I've talked extensively to people who have. So Overload just gives you more cards. Honestly, from any sort of deck builder perspective or a deck builder that I really like, that is generally the expansions that I hope for. That's the expansion that I want in Everdell. I don't want anything else. I just want more cute little creatures that I can combo and create things. So having more cards and more variation to enrich a game that you already like, that may feel exciting to you. And then finally, there's a Nomads expansion, which gives you another little board where you can move your ships around and you can take specialized missions depending on where you are in the system. So if your deck has basically just been collecting blue cards, well, you can go to the blue system and you'll probably succeed in your mission. But then you have to move, and so it encourages you to move over and help somebody else so that you can go back to the blue system and, complete another mission and keep on your specialized paths. This one honestly doesn't interest me whatsoever. I think the other two would, because I like negotiation and I like that enrichment of deck building, but the specialization of missions, I don't know, it might feel it feels a bit predictable to me. So for overly excited Chris, who's drooling at the fact that there's all this new content, that Moonrakers has been doing well, that there's this beautiful Titan box that I can only get right now, I don't necessarily feel like each expansion is going to have the same weight and the same play as everything else. So maybe save yourself a few bucks, Don't get the one that you're not gonna play with. Now, moving along to reason number 4 you shouldn't back Moonrakers is that it still isn't that great at 1 to 2 players. I've heard from the community and from a bunch of people who have played it that you want 3 to 5 players. You want that 3 to 5 player count, and that the 1 to 2 isn't as satisfying. And I don't necessarily think that any of the expansions that are currently on offer will do anything to fix that. If anything, it's the Luminor expansion that will fix that, or that is what they are trying to use or implement to fix that thing. And I love that. I think that's great. Again, it makes me excited that they are investing into their own property and they are potentially fixing out or smoothing out a lesser player count with supplemental material and giving people an additional way to enjoy their product. I think, again, that is very exciting, but that's not with any of the contents of the Titan box. That's just the base game. It's said that this campaign, this Luminor expansion, will be able to incorporate all of the different expansions, and that's great and fantastic, but I think that seems like the key to making a more rich and interesting 1 to 2 player experience. And so if that is what you are in the market for, and I know there are a lot of solo players out there or people who play at that lower player count who might be hoping that it is the expansions that do the fixing. Well, it is an expansion that might do the fixing, but it's not one that you actually have to purchase. So again, if you're at that 1 to 2 player count, I don't think you need that Titan box, since Luminor can be used with just a base game. Now, reason number 3 is that premium is thrust upon you. A premium price point is thrust upon you. For those of you who are new to the channel, I'm very cheap. It's a nice way of saying that I'm very poor. And when you go to their web store, because you can purchase, all their games off their web store instead of, jumping into Kickstarter, and they're generally the same price, or at least what I've seen. Moonrakers is currently $65 over on the web store, and it's $65 here again on this new Kickstarter. Anyway, when you go to the web store, they have a big thing saying, you won't find our games in big box stores. Selling directly to you allows us to spend approximately 2 times the amount on just the components and giving them directly to the consumer. And that's great if you want those premium upgrades. So I'll take Veiled Fate as an example. I have this copy of Veiled Fate. I'll be doing a review on it on the channel at a later date. And spoiler alert, it's great. It's fantastic. It is one of the reasons why I am so excited about Moonrakers, because I've experienced firsthand the quality of Ivy Studios. But this isn't about pumping them up. It's a different game. But the thing with Veiled Fate, when you go and you look at the prices, or even if you want to add Veiled Fate onto your pledge, it's an $89 game. And the reason for that is because the cardboard is beautifully thick. There are game tray inserts into the box. A lot of care has been taken into this production, and that is a wonderful thing. But at the same time, I think the overarching experience of Veiled Fate, while again, is a great time, doesn't require those premium elements to be a great time. A lot of Veiled Fate happens above the table, and yet you have these metal minis that are on offer, or these sculpted minis, when standees would really just be fine. It is such a minimal aspect on the game that I appreciate companies who want to go into that premium direction and make a premium product. Or at least I appreciate it when I'm playing it. But in retrospect, there sometimes feels a little bit of a disconnect between the premium components that you are forced to get. At least for me, there's always that voice in the back of my head saying, yeah, this could have been cheaper. This could have been more accessible. Maybe this could have been in big box retail stores if it wasn't crammed with so many premium components that nobody wants to pay that extra price cost for. So my hesitancy with Moonrakers is that I know in the back of my mind that it probably could be cheaper. It's really just a few decks of cards and some metal coins. And so if you have that tendency like me to be analyzing cost as you're potentially playing the game, I think that is something to consider. And I think that's a legitimate reason to not jump in, to not spend $100 on a game. For me, it's like $100 Canadian after the shipping, when it gives me a similar experience of other $50 to $60 games. You want those premium games to give you that premium experience, and while I am sure that I would enjoy Moonrakers, I'm not sure I would enjoy it over the other accessible options that I already have in my collection. And so I'm less inclined to take the risk on it because I know I am paying that extra top dollar. And if it just is, you know, same as everything else, then I probably personally won't feel as great having spent the money on it. Now, reason number 2, you shouldn't get it, and this comes directly from one of my patrons who is going all in on everything, is that the deck building can be inconsistent. In a deck building game, there can be times where you draw a hand of cards and you can only play one card, just depending how you've built that deck. And I think that's what the Nomads attempts to correct, that you can say, okay, I have built this deck in this one way, I do want to streamline this. I think the Nomads actually directly combats this element to it, or that's how it feels to me on this first glance. But that's not great. In a game that is a deck builder, that is its central mechanic, you want to have those satisfying turns that get pumped out. To draw a dead hand or not be able to get rid of those cards in a way doesn't always feel great. And I think this comes from there being 5 basic action cards that you start with, 5 different types that you start with. You have your reactors, which give you actions. You have your thrusters, which let you draw more cards. You have your shields, which protect against hazards. You have your damage, which are just used for dealing with quests. And then you have one card that's just a miss. You just miss. It's just a dead card in your deck, and you need to get more cards so that it comes up less often. Really. That's what it's for. But I think with these 5 different types of cards and the objectives having 5 different types of objectives, again, probably what Nomads is trying to combat, the possibility that you can draw these cards and not be able to do anything more often than you would like isn't great. And the game doesn't necessarily last long enough for these to be cycled out of your deck completely when it matters most. Or at least that's what I've heard. So if the deck building aspect is the thing that's drawing you into this game, well, I'm not confident that it's going to blow all the other deck builders out of the water in the deck building aspect of it. And honestly, that's because of our number 1, which is that most of the game takes place above the table. Or perhaps most of the game is a little bit of a hyperbole, but it seems like a great deal of the game takes place above the table. And what I mean by that is, again, with Veiled Fate, it's not necessarily the things that are happening that are creating the game. It is your group and how it is providing interaction and how it is creating reasons for you to engage with the people around the table that make it a very exciting and intriguing game for me. And this is my number 1 reason you shouldn't back, because it needs, I believe it will need a very specific group to play the game. I've heard that's the reason why Binding Ties exists as the campaign, to, again, combat that sort of sentiment, because you have an actual track that's built in and you can see, and it can get people who aren't used to talking more engaged in it. But if you don't have a game group that is going to spend more of the game talking than actually doing the mechanical aspects of it, or an equal amount, I don't know if you're going to get all that this game can potentially offer. I mean, in the end, it does come down to 10 points. It's the first person to get to 10 points wins the game. And that negotiation aspect will probably slow down as the game progresses, because you can see, oh, that person's at 9 points. Well, I'm not going to put them on the mission with me. And so in a sense, maybe it is that deck building portion that then soars forward, because negotiation can only get you so far, and in fact allows everybody else to catch up when they know that you're clearly in the lead. It's one of those games where if you're second, you're probably going to win, because everyone's going to team up against whoever's first, and then you can sneak on by with a sneaky win. But I think the opportunity where this differs from something like Catan, which involves negotiation and somebody getting to 10 points and you saying, please give me a sheep, and they say, no, you will win. You can say, hey, I'll go on that mission with you. I don't want anything at all. I want $1. I want $1. That's it. You can really lowball yourself, get yourself on those missions, and then potentially achieve a secret objective card that actually gives you the points to get into the end. But all of that comes, I think, from communication and interaction. And if you don't have a group who's interested in that, or if you have one player who's going to just snowball over everybody, I don't necessarily see, honestly, any of these expansions changing that dynamic. I think these expansions will give you more of what you like, and I think these expansions will give you slight tweaks to systems that you may already enjoy. But if you don't enjoy those systems, and if you don't enjoy the experience already above the table, then you shouldn't be getting every expansion. And if you haven't played Moonrakers yet, and you don't know if this is a game for you, why are you getting everything? Why are you getting all these modules that you won't play, that you'll play one of, when you could just get the base game, experience that, and then get what you want later? I understand saving on shipping, maybe getting it all bundled together is the right choice versus spending your money later. But I would just caution that I think Ivy Studios, if it goes in the same way as Veiled Fate, and it seems like it might, the game that is played above the table will determine if you enjoy your game or not. And if you aren't interested in that sort of experience, and that doesn't excite you, then maybe take a pass. Anyway, those are my 5 reasons you shouldn't back Moonrakers. And if I'm full of garbage and I'm talking out of my butt and I don't know what I'm talking about, make sure to drop a comment in the comments below, because it's a great resource for people who are still deciding whether or not they should purchase the game or go all in. Personally, for me, I really like Veiled Fate, and I'm really intrigued by Moonrakers. And I am going to struggle with this campaign. I want to get everything. I'll try to get nothing, but I might end up backing that base pledge if I can get in on a group buy up here in Canada. And honestly, you can go back and look through all of the 5 reasons. This is almost as close as I come to backing the game. I'm going to sit on it. Reason number 6 is you don't have to decide right now. There are 24 or something days left in the campaign. You have a lot of time to mull it over. You have a lot of time to get a group together and play a version of it online and see if you like it. And that's the route that hopefully I will take, but it looks cool. Again, as somebody who doesn't have the game, I feel fairly confident that I won't go into that all-in price of all the expansions and the big box, simply because you don't know if it's going to be your favorite game yet. And you don't know if you will want to get all those things. But again, I'm just one idiot with a camera and a backdrop while I'm away from my studio. If you've played Moonrakers, you've enjoyed it, you haven't, make sure to write in the comments below and help everybody else make their decision. Thanks so much for watching. If you're still here, hey, subscribe. Just do it. Come on. You're not even going to notice, and if you do notice, it'll be whenever I go live, and then you can unsubscribe then and make me feel just really horrendous about myself. Do it all in one go. It's perfect. I appreciate you being here. Hopefully you found this video helpful in taking a step back, checking yourself, and seeing if you really need this in your collection. And if you do, well, I hope you love it for a very, very long time. Once again, my name's Chris George, and I don't have a catchphrase, but hopefully I talked you down from the FOMO. See you in the next one.